everybody. It's Jessica Stone at Stansberry Research, and I'm joined now by Amanda Cuocci of the Health and Wealth Bulletin. And we wanted to talk today about whether or not you can get COVID-19 twice. This is a question a lot of people are asking, and a lot of people are writing about. What are we learning, Amanda, about the science and what the research is telling us about the answer to that question?
We're just not entirely sure yet. And there are quite a few theories out there. A couple of the biggest ones that we've seen. The first is that, we do know that about 80% of people get a mild or asymptomatic form of COVID, 20% are severe. But that 80%, you could clear that from your system without actually making antibodies. This happens all the time when we get the common cold. The first line of immune defense comes in, kicks it out, and you're fine. But you don't make antibodies. I mean, that's why you can get 2-3 colds over the course of a cold and flu season.
Okay.
One study I was reading about, SARS, a few years ago, is actually the closest genetically linked virus we have to COVID, right? And what the scientists were finding is that you actually have immunity to SARS for about 2 years. Your antibodies last that long. With MERS, which is also very similar, that's only 18 months. So if you do produce enough antibodies for coronavirus, for the one that causes COVID anyway, there is a possibility that you could have at least a limited amount of immunity.
So some of it is timing. And of course, the research is still going on, and I'm sure we'll be learning more as time goes on. So to that end, what does the research sort of need to tell us? What are we looking to understand beyond the big question? What are some of the specifics that we need to get answers to really get to that broader answer? What do we know? What do we need to know, for example, about the virus itself? And I know mutation, I think, plays into this as well.
Right. So mutation is a great example. The thing is, we don't know how fast this is going to mutate, how many strains there are going to be. If you're familiar with the influenza vaccine every year, we have to get a new vaccine every year because the virus mutates so rapidly. So we could be seeing something similar with this virus. We're not quite sure yet. Another problem that we're having is, there's an issue with the testing itself because, some people are testing negative, but they're doing throat swabs. So if the virus is still active in your lungs, it may not be in your throat anymore. Upper respiratory sometimes moves down your system, but you still have it. You're still, every time you cough, you're spreading the virus particles, things like that. And then there's another option, which is one that we're very worried about, which is that the virus could go dormant and then sort of have a resurgence. If you're familiar with chickenpox, that leads to shingles. You get chickenpox as a kid, you can get shingles later in life as an adult. And that's because the virus never goes away. It's still there in your system. It just gets reactivated. So a lot of these cases where we're seeing people getting sick multiple times, we don't know really if it's the testing problems, we don't know if it's the virus is getting dormant, or we don't know if they're just not making antibodies and you're catching it again like the common cold.
And you mentioned testing earlier there. I know there's been some recent writing about the accuracy of testing. It seems like we may not even really be able to answer this question of whether you can get it more than once unless we know whether you've had it to begin with.
Absolutely. And the CDC just came out a few days ago saying that about half of all antibody tests are wrong. They're giving people far too many false positives, which is dangerous because then you think you might be immune, you can be fine, go out and do things, but you're really not. You haven't actually had the virus. And there are a couple reasons this might be happening. It could be that the test is, picking up on other coronaviruses that are very similar, and so it's testing positive. Or it could just be, any number of things. Like I mentioned with the throat swabs, that's a problem. But also if you've recovered, sometimes the test will pick up that you're positive and all you're getting are dead virus particles. Like your body's already killed it. It's just got the extra particles hanging out, but you still test positive even though you don't actually have any live virus in you. And, one of the things that hasn't really been touched on that much is we don't know exactly how this virus interacts with our immune system. I mentioned earlier that there's sort of a first line of defense, your innate immune system. When that kicks in, you clear viruses, you clear bacteria, no problem. But you don't make antibodies, so you don't remember it. Now, if you're fighting for a while and your body gets overwhelmed, then they kind of call in the reserves, right? You get your B cells, your T cells, they start making antibodies. But we don't know where in that pathway the virus may be interfering. So there is some research in that about, is it messing with your innate immune system? Is it suppressing your B cells from being able to make antibodies? We just don't know how that all shakes out yet.
All right. Well, thanks so much for spending some time with us, Amanda Cuocci there from the Health and Wealth Bulletin. And if you would like to see much more content just like this, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, or you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.